back to it if you want. And Dr. Mike Hopkins, our carbon energy expert, should we call him that?
Thank you very much, Chris. Although I am going to pull you up on the term expert. I do have some expertise. It's in finance is my background, incidentally, so I am not an expert in carbon and energy efficiency. But my members are. And that's really why I'm here today, to talk a little bit about the expertise that you can access and how to go about accessing some of that expertise. And looking around the room as well, I've got something else to pick you up on, Chris. Looking at the youngsters in this room, I don't think any of them will know about carbon paper, will they? Unfortunately, I am old enough to remember carbon paper from my youth. But yeah, first of all, then I'll start with a little bit about the clicker. A little bit about CEP. So historically, and it's why I feel very, very comfortable and confident talking about expertise. Because historically, we were an organization called EMANS, and our foundation, shall we say, was as a special interest group of Engineering New Zealand. That was around about 1993. So as an organisation, we've got a long history. We've been working very closely with ICA since ICA was formed, round about the turn of the century. And we run accreditation schemes that have been put in place by ICA. So if you're looking to access some of that ICA funding that Graham was talking about before, then you pretty much need to be using one of our members to be able to do that, certainly one of our accredited people. So we consider ourselves to be the home of professionals in energy efficiency and carbon management. We've got around about 270 individual members and around about 37, I think, at the last count, corporate partners as well. So as an organisation, we look after them, and we also offer training and accreditation in these areas. So one of the things that, again, Graham referred to earlier on was the Neighbours scheme, and Neighbours 4-star ratings, Neighbours 5-star ratings. The question has to be, how do you get your premises from being a 4 to a 5-star rating? And that's going to become increasingly important in the public sector as we go forward because of the CNGP. I'm going to ask for a quick hands up. Anybody not heard of the CNGP? One. CNGP is the Carbon Neutral Government Programme. By 2025, all government agencies and departments are expected to be carbon neutral. Why is that important? Well, it means that beyond 2025, any government agency or department that has carbon emissions will need to offset them. So you have got a direct offsetting cost hitting you smack in the face come 2026, unless you can get those emissions down beforehand. Chances are you're not going to be able to reduce to zero. I mean, that's relatively unrealistic. But the fact of the matter is that everything you can save between now and 2025 is going to help reduce that offsetting bill when it comes to the situation when you're going to have to offset. That is the announcement of the CNGP. That came about at the end of last year. Public sector carbon neutral, as I said. Graham's touched on some of those key issues. Boiler replacement's key issue, electric vehicles key issue, and the green standard, which is the Neighbours key issue. What I've done with this is just try to pick out some of the expectations that will be imposed upon government agencies and departments. So you're all going to have to measure and verify your carbon emissions reports. So if you're not doing that already, you probably need to start doing it, because the time at which you had to start doing that was last week. The reporting will come in with effect from at least this is the latest. I was informed that public information. I was told officially by MFE probably about 3 weeks ago that the start date will be the financial year July 21 to June 22 will be the first year of measuring and verifying emissions reporting. So you should be recording it now. As part of that, there'll be targets. You'll be expected to report on targets for reduction as well, and to introduce a plan to enact those reductions. So reporting and planning for it is on everybody's workspace at the moment. And as I said, offsetting your gross emissions that you're not managed to, or you're continuing gross emissions from 2025. So we are talking about direct costs if the emissions don't come down. I put in there a little extract as well. This is all from the MFE website, by the way, so this is all publicly available information. And I put in there as well an extract about the timeline and the currently published timeline. I emphasised down at the bottom there the fact that it's starting for this financial year. So you should really all be on top of that by now. So why am I here? Well, as I said before, I'm here to talk about our members and what our members can do to help with that. So first of all, we can look at measuring. Several of our members offer services that will measure your emissions. You could be doing that internally, of course. So one of the things that people need to decide and think about is whether or not you try and do that internally and then have them externally verified, or whether you try and get somebody in to help you with the measurement in itself. Either way, they're going to have to be verified at the end of it. So our members offer services in measurement, mostly using your invoices, your invoice-based systems, which then automatically relate back to the conversion factors that Brian touched on earlier. So you can measure. Some of our members will verify. We actually operate a certification scheme for auditors. So you can find somebody to do that verification amongst our membership. That is subject to, I would add, guidelines to be issued by MFE, the details of which, as I said, were hinted at by the end of June. They have not emerged yet. I don't know, Graham, if there's any update on the date for that. No. I do know that ECA's got some presentations later this month to talk about it, I think, isn't it? So we would expect to have the guidelines available by then. A little bit behind. I have actually seen the draft of the guidelines, but I've been sworn to secrecy on pain of death, apparently, if I reveal any of that information. So everything you see here today from me is publicly available, I will emphasise. Our members will be able to help you identify opportunities for reduction. Now, lighting is one of them, obviously, and that is one that has been talked about extensively this morning, and I think Brian's coming back to talk a bit more about that later on. But lighting is one of the easy ones. Some of them may not be quite so easy, and of course our members can come in and do that. And look at efficient operations. So things like HVAC systems as well. They can come into your organisation and look at the operations. We run courses, for example, on continuous commissioning, on commercial building energy specialists we have. So they will be able to look at what you're doing at the moment and take that systems approach to making things better and getting those emissions down. Bottom of the list there with a slightly different bullet point, as you can see, is training. Because we offer training, not just to our members, but to organisations like yourselves, if you wanted to do some of this yourself. So, for example, and I've just scribbled a few down here, we have a facilities managers course, energy efficiency for facilities managers, which is running in September this year. That's online. We have a course on identifying a carbon footprint and preparing a carbon inventory. That's running in July. We've got an energy auditor program running in September that will put you in a position to get from the 4 to the 5 star neighbours. There's the difference I should emphasise between an energy audit and a neighbours audit is that a neighbours audit will tell you where you are and give you a star rating and a certification at the end of it. An energy audit done to the 3598 2014 standard, because we're talking about standards as well this morning, will actually provide information and advice and recommendations to improve. So the energy audit will actually take you that step to make things better. And of course, that's going to save money in the short term, and it's going to save emissions in the short term and put you in a better position to reduce those offsets in the longer term. So we offer those that training to a wider public. We've actually got a continuous commissioning program as well on the stocks, but no dates published yet. That's likely to be October, I think. But just have a look at our website if you're interested in any of that. One of the things that Brian in particular asked me to look at and to talk today is the issue of using specialists and using expertise. And that kind of schema shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. It's the sort of thing that anyone would see as they're going through career progression, as they're going through building experience and expertise in a sector. So you start as a novice, you do a bit of a training, get a bit of experience, and you work your way up through the scale. So what is really the advantage of using somebody who is an expert or a specialist in these areas? Well, really, there are four things. We're talking about not reinventing the wheel. I'm always staggered when I take my European car to the mechanic who spends 3 times as long to fix it as it would a Japanese car, because he's learning to do it at the same time as trying to fix it. And I'm paying for that. Well, if I went to a specialist European mechanic, or a mechanic specializing in European cars, I may get that a bit quicker. So there is a cost saving because people know what they're talking about. They're not having to discover new things. That's time efficient as well, of course. So the hours that you're going to pay for is reduced. So you're getting better value for money. That's what expertise will buy you. You get probably stronger recommendations, and you get it in a more efficient timeline. And given that we've got very keen timelines, shall we say, for getting neighbours rated and getting to carbon neutral by 2025, that time aspect is very important. You've also got risk minimisation. There's an old saying, for those of us who can remember it, Chris, that you never get fired for buying IBM. Now, it was never actually an IBM slogan, but it became adopted, I think, by them as well as many of the organizations. I did see one person recognize it in the audience. The logic being, if you go for the best and the reliable, then even if things did turn to custard, you ain't going to get blamed for it because you went for the top level expertise. So I relate that more to a risk minimization factor. You can make sure and be confident that you're getting strong expertise or strong advice by using an expert and an accredited person. So what could you actually expect by going to one of our members, one of our experts? Well, you'll get professionalism, you'll get treated well because they have good service, they've usually been around a little bit, so they understand how to deal with customers, and they need to know what they understand what customers want. But most importantly, you'll get your energy savings, you'll get your immediate cost savings through using less energy. Excuse me. You'll get your emission savings, you'll reduce your offsetting costs come 2026, and for the most part, you'll get a positive ROI, because if you don't, then you wouldn't do it again. So it's important that when you use the services of one of our members, that they do give you a solid and good return on the money that you're giving them. How do you find one? Well, to find one of the specialists is relatively straightforward. You go to our website, cep.org.nz, And you go through this little process. Now, hopefully the vid's going to work. The vid is working. So from the home page, you just scroll down a little bit from the home page until you find an expert section. If you click on that, then you can select levels and, well, not so much levels of expertise, but areas of expertise from a drop-down menu. And you can see when that drops down, you're talking about carbon issues, carbon accounting, carbon monitoring, verification, and you're looking at lots of energy efficiency activities as well. So those are the areas of activities that the member will consider or that you can look for amongst the membership. You can also look for the accreditations and the certifications. We have a list. I probably did the search a little bit too quickly. We have a list by region, as you can see, but I'll flip back to the accreditations. We have specialist certifications and accreditations in certain areas, and they've flipped down on that second box there. What you can do, and what I did there, is go back, and just to illustrate the case, I went and selected lighting, seeing as we're at a lighting session. So the lighting experts will come up on the list. Please go down near the bottom and hit the load more, because our website is currently designed so that you kind of get 3 and you've got to load more. You've probably seen that on many websites that you might look at and look for searches on. So look through, as I said, you can do it by area of specialization and by certification and by location. And the long and the short of it is that our members are here to help. Some of that, I would like to think, might come with some ECA funding as well, if the plans stack up. And of course, the ECA account managers have very strong relationships with our membership, so that they will talk to each other. So you can talk to ECA to see if you can get some funding. Talk to our members to see if they can squeeze ECA to get some funding, because they know which triggers to try and press to get some of that funding. And if we all do that and we all pull together on it, then I think we can see a carbon neutral government by 2026. We just hope that it's not done through huge amounts of offsetting, and that we can actually get the emissions down in the first place before having to pay lots of money, potentially overseas, frankly, to buy those offsets. So that's really is all I wanted to say this morning. Happy to take any questions around that, if anybody has any questions to raise about those issues. Nobody got any questions? So we're all going to rush out and hit our website. Find those expertise, get those offsets reduced to next to nothing. Please, we all need it. So, Chris, Brian?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, Mike. And I think the big takeaway from that session for me was, don't reinvent the wheel. There is expertise around. It's not always in your face. It's not always as neatly packaged as those from the CEP, back from the CEP. But I think the moral of the story is to network events like this and others. Find out who, not just from acknowledged experts, but also from your peers and colleagues who are walking down that same journey. Compare notes and share. So I think we can all learn a lot from that. It is an emergent area. No one really knows everything about everything in this area, and we're all piecing together the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. So that was my learnings from that.